You see that 12 ring I just shot with my PSE bow? You want a PSE bow? I'll tell you what, I'll give you a PSE bow. All you gotta do is like, subscribe, and comment on the channel. If you do that, we're gonna give one away. And if you do that, you're entered to win. Simple as that. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys. All right, guys, so we talk about food plots, we talk about food sources, we talk about a lot of different ways to create food, whether it's through timber stand improvement, burning, reintroducing habitat, things like that. There are some other, I guess, key variables that I use to determine whether or not there is enough food on my property. So for whitetails, obviously. So one of the main things that I try to focus on as a habitat manager, as a hunter, if property owners, anybody that owns property or is doing, trying to focus on getting enough food on their parcel for whitetails, they should really focus on having food during really all of the year, but even more importantly, during the harshest portions of the year. We kind of just think to ourselves sometimes, all right, we're just going to go with that green blend in late August. That's what we normally do. We're just going to do something easy. But in reality, there's a time of the year in which deer need food more than ever. And, it's that post-rut time period all the way until spring hits. So let's say that we did put in a good spring crop. Let's say it was corn or it was beans. And I'm not a huge fan of corn just because there's more benefits, I guess, or more beneficial ways to feed your deer than putting out corn or having corn planted, just from a biological standpoint, from a nutritional standpoint. Too much corn late in the season, depending on where you're at within the country, can be detrimental to your deer's health. They can gorge themselves to death, get something called rumen acidosis, where their body basically can't process the carbohydrates. So corn is something that, is better than nothing, I guess, to a certain extent, maybe not. But maybe you go in and you plant soybeans in the spring. We obviously know I'm a big fan of that. Whether it's your clover, just having something, in the spring so that we can have a late season food, and your beans and corn is going to be really the way to go. The clover is not going to be there if you get a decent amount of snow. They're not going to want to dig through it. Can they dig through it? Whatever. But what I'm getting at is there's a way to gauge whether or not there is enough food on your property for these deer. I see it a lot, man. I see it a lot through really the entire whitetails range, where this gauge exists. I see it through Wisconsin, I see it through Iowa, I see it through Illinois, I see it through Missouri, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, all the places I see it. Once I get a little bit farther south into Kentucky, I don't see it as much, but you still see it. So that gauge that I'm talking about is cedars, okay? And we talked about cedars in the past, how much we do or don't love them, why I think they're a tree that you should get rid of. To a certain extent, diversity is always key, but you don't want too much of any one monoculture, and especially a monoculture that blocks out a lot of sunlight and keeps, woody browse from growing that deer can ultimately feed on. Cedars, conifers being one of them. But here's the thing about cedars. Some of you believe out there, and I've seen it in the comments, that cedars are good for your deer because you see them eating them and they need cedars for food on your property. Here's the thing, guys. If you see deer, and here's your gauge, here is how you know whether you have enough food on your property or not. And I don't think you're going to completely eradicate it, or this issue, but a good gauge that I like to use is if I go to a property in spring, which is when I generally visit people, and I go through their properties and I see that the browse line on their cedars is right about, consistent with the height of a deer, that means that those deer are browsing on cedars, okay? And that's not a good thing. Cedars are extremely low in nutrition for whitetails. So what that means to me is food is one of the limiting factors of the property. Can we do more for food plots? That's a good way to solve this issue. But another great, more natural way is just through cutting down trees. Literally the tree tops. Go and cut down some trees late in the year, some trees that you plan to cut down for habitat regardless, and leave them there. And I bet you, put a trail camera on them, within 24 hours, deer will be there feeding on those tops. And that's a natural food source that they can browse on. Not similar to, I guess, like a food plot or anything like that, which is fine. It doesn't have to be. Regardless, there's food either way, no matter which way you try to create it. Where supplemental feeding is legal, go ahead and put down a high protein food source. We talked about the carbohydrates, all that. But anyway, regardless, when I'm going through these properties and I see they have a significant amount of cedars, which is an issue in itself, and then see that those cedars are extremely browsed, that means to me that there is no better quality food than a cedar. And if you think cedars are good for deer, I'm here to tell you they're not. So if you see that in your piece of timber where the cedars, the pines are all browsed up to the deer's level on a consistent basis, on a yearly basis, food is the limiting factor of your property, and we need to solve that. So if you guys like these kinds of tips, you like these types of videos, these topics, anything hunting related, make sure you're liking and subscribing. We drop a lot of videos, 2 a week right now, and if you like and subscribe to this channel, you're entered in all of our giveaways, which we're always doing giveaways: bows, trail cameras, tree stands, optics, you name it. So if you want free stuff, like and subscribe.